headquarters for the Red State Revolution, Steve Gill is on the air.
And welcome back into another edition of the Steve Gill Show, the weekend edition, and man, what a week it has been. Everything from the Super Bowl with both the game, the ads, well, the halftime show where I thought we were going to have a Janet Jackson moment at any time. But the ads are always the big deal. We're going to talk a little bit about that in this segment. We're also going to talk about this week from the Benghazi investigation. The U.S. Senate asking some really tough questions and getting some really disturbing answers from folks like Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, and from Martin Dempsey, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Not good answers about what happened at Benghazi. And we're going to talk a lot about that, let you hear some of the really tough questioning that Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, imposed upon some of these folks that are still covering up the truth of what happened at Benghazi and where was Obama, where was Hillary Clinton. We'll talk a little bit about that during the course of this hour as well. And it was signing day in the Southeastern Conference. The Vols got some good picks, lost out on a few at the end of the day. The sad thing for the Vols is that they were the 10th best recruiting class in the Southeastern Conference, even though they were ranked in the top 20 in some of the recruiting classes. We'll talk a little football, talk a little halftime show at the Super Bowl. We'll get into all that. But first, let's talk a little bit about some of the ads at the Super Bowl. I mean, I always love the ads. And there were some great ones. There were some gross ones. That whole kissing thing with GoDaddy.com, I think, was rated as one of the worst ads in the entire night. I loved the USO ad that Oprah Winfrey did. Brought a little tear to my eye. There were some great ones involving the Clydesdales. There always are. But the ad that got everybody talking, and even though they bought 2 minutes of ad time and spent $8 million just for that spot, and then the next day they actually bought a 4-page ad in USA Today, was the Ram truck ad featuring the voice of iconic radio legend Paul Harvey talking about God creating a farmer. This is the spot in case you missed it.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then pain in from tractor back, put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners, somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk, somebody who'd bale a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer.
What a great ad. And that voice of Paul Harvey, the intonation, and the message had people buzzing all week. Now, as you would expect, people were caught up in the ad. They were captivated by the ad. It was probably one of the highlights of the whole Super Bowl. But it wasn't long until somebody decided to come up with a parody of that ad. And God created a liberal may be one of the best things I've seen and heard in a long time. If you'll go to our website, gillreport.com, we've got the video of this God created a liberal parody of the God made a farmer piece that was aired during the Super Bowl. But if you don't see anything this week other than God created a liberal, go check it out at gillreport.com, and this is what it sounds like.
And on the 9th day, God spilled some coffee on an angry possum, and God made a liberal. God said, I need someone willing to get up at the crack of noon and check their Facebook and tweet vile things, take a nap, borrow money from their parents, and stay out all night drinking Paps ironically and snorting bath salts and wine until midnight. So God made a liberal. He said, I need a person that can take a thriving community and turn it into a debt-ridden post-apocalyptic welfare state. I need someone who thinks meat is murder, produce is raised in grocery aisles, who can't fix a flat tire or change her own oil, and who, when forced to finally get a job as a barista, makes you wait for your latte while they play Angry Birds on their iPhone and then takes his union-mandated 2-hour break. So God made a liberal. God said, I need somebody dumb enough to believe in global warming and deficit spending, yet arrogant enough to look down at hard-working folk because they don't have a worthless PhD in 17th century Belgian lesbian studies. It had to be someone that would tax and spend, sue and attack, flip and flop, legislate from the bench and pass an unread bill. A person that would take a story of American success and turn it into a lesson of injustice. So God made a liberal. It had to be someone who'd lie to themselves and others and envy the successful. Someone to whine, cry, demand, screech, and scream sexist, intolerant, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, bigot. It had to be someone that at the end of the day they could go home after helping rip apart a country with divisive race and class war, and who would laugh and then sigh with mocking eyes, thinking, if I hadn't aborted all my children, they'd probably say they want to spend their life doing what Dad does. So God made a liberal.
I still kind of like the Paul Harvey version better, but that is some good stuff. That's some good stuff. Great stuff out of the Super Bowl with some of the ads. We'll talk more about those this hour. Also, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that Benghazi investigation that took place in the U.S. Senate this week, and a lot of tough questions for folks like Leon Panetta, for Martin Dempsey, about what actually happened that night at Benghazi. We now learn that Barack Obama was completely AWOL. While our embassy, while our consulate in Benghazi was under fire, the president was completely missing in action, and that was part of the testimony we got from Leon Panetta and others this week in Washington. We'll talk more about it in a moment. This is the Steve Gill Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.
With Steve's need-to-know news, videos, and daily guest info, GillReport.com is your one-stop news source.
The few, the proud, the Marines.
With the nights getting cooler, spend time with your family around a top-quality fire pit from Agio and DT McCall's.
Check out this Heritage gas fire pit with tile inlay, just $6.49.
Or a Springfield gas fire pit with lava rocks and logs, just $10.99.
Or this Heritage wood fire pit for $6.49.
We have a Haywood fire pit 5-piece chat group with the chairs, just $14.99.
And remember, delivery and setup are always free, and you're keeping your money local with DT McCall's.
Hey!
Hey, this is Steve Gill. What separates a truly great hotel from just another hotel? Well, it might be exquisite architecture, historic Southern charm, first-class service, amazing food. You roll that all together and you've got Union Station Hotel in downtown Nashville. An absolutely luxurious experience that you're going to remember and talk about for a long time to come. Go to their website today at unionstationhotelnashville.com or call them. Find out more details and book your reservation today at Union Station Hotel, 615-726-1001.
Now, Steve Gill.
Welcome back in. This is the Steve Gill Show, the weekend edition. And as we were talking just before the break, I was very disturbed to watch the testimony coming out of Washington this week about what happened at Benghazi. The President of the United States back in November did a press conference where he claimed that he gave 3 orders that night when he learned that our embassy, our consulate, was under fire in Benghazi, and the first of those was to do whatever it takes to take care of our people. Do whatever it takes to take care of our people. Now, we all know by this time that the weeks that followed that attack on our consulate, on our soil in Benghazi, was followed up by several weeks of misinformation, disinformation, and outright lies about what happened, how it happened, what they did at the time it happened. Hillary Clinton finally testified a week or so ago, and her story was, does it really matter? Does it really matter what happened? Well, yeah, it does. And that's why they were questioning Leon Panetta, questioning Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, this week in Washington. And what they testified to further underscores that everything we've been told about Benghazi up till now has been a lie, has been about covering up the truth rather than getting us to the truth. Now, the most disturbing thing about the testimony we got this week was the fact that Barack Obama literally left the meeting after they had determined in the Situation Room that our ambassador, Chris Stevens, had been killed, with the embassy still under attack by terrorists that we now learn may have been armed with weapons that we provided to the terrorist groups in Libya. The president leaves. Leon Panetta doesn't talk to him again, doesn't hear anything more from him. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs says they were never asked to go in and rescue the men and women who were under fire there. So they did nothing. Everybody did nothing. Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, wasn't involved, wasn't contacted, didn't weigh in. Martin Dempsey said they didn't send the rescue operation in because they weren't asked to by the Secretary of State, and that the U.S. military is not a 911 service. When American soil is under attack, and that's what a consulate is, that's what that consulate in Benghazi is, when American territory is under attack, if we're not going to be calling 911 for our military to step up and defend our shores, defend our territory, then what are they for? What are they for if not to be answering the call when America is under attack? The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Martin Dempsey, he ought to be court-martialed. He ought to be fired right now for dereliction of duty. He ought to be stripped of his rank, stripped of any benefits he's going to get for the cavalier attitude he showed in his testimony this week. And his boss, the Secretary of Defense, didn't do much better. Leon Panetta, Secretary of Defense, testifying that while they had their regularly scheduled meeting with the President of the United States at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon that day, 9/11, there had been threats against our consulate. A terror attack is underway, and they knew right from the outset that this was a terror attack. This wasn't about some movie riot gone wrong. The President of the United States sits there, gets the initial reports of what's going on. The firefight is continuing, and the President leaves, and they never hear from him again. Worse, Leon Panetta never checks back in with him. Now, again, the President told us in November at a press conference, trying to look like he was the manly man in charge that night, that he directed his senior staff, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the National Security Advisor, do whatever it takes. Well, either he didn't actually issue that order, which is likely and should have been one of the questions that Lindsey Graham and others would have asked. Either he didn't issue that order and he lied, or he issued that order and nobody took him seriously, nobody followed up on it, nobody kept him in the loop, or even tried to keep him in the loop. Now, again, I know he wasn't playing golf. It was 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not sure what else he might have been doing, perhaps skeet shooting. But the bottom line is the President of the United States was not involved, was not in contact with his top advisors at a time that the American embassy in Benghazi was under attack by terrorists, at a time when they already knew that our ambassador had been killed and was missing. The President just stepped away and did nothing. Nor did the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, nor did the Secretary of State, nor did the Secretary of Defense, nor did the National Security Advisor. They sat there and let Americans die and did nothing. And then for the next couple of weeks, they lied about it. Now, coming up in the next segment, we're going to let you hear from Lindsey Graham as he questioned what was going on, how it went on, why nothing was done to help those who were under fire from these terrorists. It is one of the most despicable episodes in American history, and the mainstream media is ignoring it. If you go to our website, gillreport.com, gillreport.com, you can find links to the testimony, links to the story. Leon Panetta says there wasn't enough time for a military response in Benghazi. It was a 7-hour firefight. You can read that story find out more details about Defense Secretary Leon Panetta and his testimony before the Senate panel investigating what happened at Benghazi. Now, again, they asked a lot of good questions, and some of the answers are extraordinarily disturbing. What may be more disturbing is the fact that the mainstream media has looked the other way. ABC News, for example, didn't even cover the story. Didn't even cover the fact that Barack Obama goes AWOL while American territory, American men and women representing us in Libya were under fire. He just leaves. He just leaves. And nobody's in further contact with him. Again, I think some of the senators should have asked, where was he? What was he doing? Get Jay Carney in there testifying. Where was the president? What was he doing that was so much more important than American territory being under fire by terrorists on the anniversary of 9/11 in an attack that left 2 brave American servicemen dead, a consulate official, and our ambassador dead? What was the president doing that was so much more important than that? And where was Hillary Clinton? She was a disappeared one during this whole disaster as well. Remember that famous ad during the presidential election, the presidential primary 5 years ago, where Hillary Clinton read in that ad asking, who do you want answering the call at 3 o'clock in the morning when some disaster is underway? Who do you want in the White House answering the call? Well, I don't know about 3 a.m., but at 5 p.m. on a work day with American territory under fire by terrorists, Barack Obama didn't answer the call. Hillary Clinton didn't answer the call. Leon Panetta didn't answer the call. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff didn't answer the call. The National Security Advisor didn't answer the call. Our American military didn't answer the call. And Americans died as a result. Tough questions are being asked, but the media needs to be all over this, other than us. Again, go to our website, gillreport.com. gillreport.com. Click on that Daily Notes button. Click on the politics segment. You'll find links to these stories. When we come back, you're going to hear some of the questioning of some of these individuals in charge that night, as some senators like Lindsey Graham are trying to get to the bottom of it. I would hope Senator Bob Corker would start weighing in on this as well. Tennessee Senator Bob Corker is on this Foreign Relations Committee. He is the leading Republican on this committee. He needs to be leading the charge to get to the truth of not only what happened that night, but did the president issue an order to say, do whatever it takes to take care of our people? Or when the president learned that our embassy was under fire, that our ambassador was dead, was his response, whatever, rather than do whatever it takes? Did they disobey his orders, or did he never issue them? When we come back, you'll hear from Lindsey Graham as he took some of these guys to task. It is a tape you're not hearing, you're not seeing in the mainstream media. But you'll hear it here next on The Steve Gill Show.
It'll wake you up faster than that $4 coffee you're drinking. Steve's Daily Notes are online now. Check it out at gillreport.com.
This Get a Job moment is brought to you by StreetLogic101.com.
This is Ed Burrell. Have you sent out what seems like 1,000 job applications but haven't heard back from anyone? Are you discouraged and fear you may never find a job in this horrible job market? Prepare yourself for a successful job search. Get the most comprehensive jobs guide available in paperback called Beating the Gatekeepers. It's available at StreetLogic101.com. Companies will begin hiring again in the new year, and you need to learn how to move from disappointment to employment. That's StreetLogic101.com.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Every dollar counts these days, and at AH Reloading, they help you get a bigger bang for your buck with all the shooting, hunting, and reloading supplies you need and at the prices you'll love. Looking for brass powder and reloading presses? They have it all at AH Reloading Supply, located at 1134 4th Avenue South in downtown Nashville on the corner of 4th and Chestnut. Open Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 5, Saturday, 10 to 2. Call AH Reloading today, 615-218-1975, 615-218-1975, or online at ahreloading.com.
Here's Steve Gill.
Welcome back in. This is the Steve Gill Show, the weekend edition. And as always, if you'll go to our website, gillreport.com, gillreport.com, you can find links to the stories we're talking about. Go to our Facebook page, Steve Gill Show, Steve Gill Show, and you can also find links to stories and chat back and forth with those who are commenting on those stories. And please feel free to send me an email, steve@gillreport.com. steve@gillreport.com if you want to share your thoughts about the show or give us tips or ideas about things we ought to be talking about on the Steve Gill Show. Again, gillreport.com, the website. You'll find links to all the stories that we're talking about there. And one of the top stories, and you can actually watch this video, involves the Benghazi investigation by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. This week, you had Senator Lindsey Graham in a rare show of actually doing his job, taking to task those representatives of our Defense Department, our military, and the administration on what they did on 9/11, the anniversary of 9/11, when our embassy was under fire in Benghazi. It's a bit long, but it is worth hearing this back and forth where Lindsey Graham literally takes Leon Panetta to task for the absolute failure, the dereliction of duty that left Americans dead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having the hearing. Secretary Panetta, you will be missed. You've served our nation well. You will be missed. And General Dempsey, thank you for your service. Now, this is a hearing about Benghazi. We've talked about sequestration, which is important, and I just want to make sure that we understand what happened on September 11th regarding Benghazi. Your testimony, as I understand it, Secretary Panetta, that you talked to the President of the United States one time.
Talked to him on September 11th with regards to the fact that we were aware this attack was taking place.
One time?
Right.
What time did you tell him that?
I think that was approximately about 5. Yeah, about 5. About 5 o'clock.
General Dempsey, did you ever talk to the President of the United States at all?
I was with the Secretary at that same time.
Did you talk to the President?
Yes.
You talked to him how many times?
The same one time.
How long did the conversation last?
We were there in the office for probably 30 minutes.
So you talked to him for 30 minutes, one time, and you never talked to him again? Neither one of you?
Until afterwards.
Until after the attack was over?
That's right.
Thank you. Were there any AC-130 gunships within 1,000 miles of Benghazi, Libya?
No, sir.
Were there any AC-130 gunships within 2,000 miles of Benghazi, Libya?
I have to go back and look at a map and figure out the distance. The nearest ones I were aware of were
You said the F-16 was not a good platform to defend the consulate. What would have been the appropriate platform?
The appropriate platform, Senator, would have been to have boots on the ground ahead of the event. After the event is in conduct, it would be very difficult to have a military...
let's just, I mean, would an AC-130 been a good platform to help defend the consulate after the attack?
If we had the adequate understanding of what was on the ground so that we weren't killing innocent...
Is there a saying in the military, when you go into harm's way, we've got your back?
Of course, yes, sir.
Don't you think that saying has been undermined here, that how can people in the military, the Foreign Service, believe we've got their back when after over 7... One, did you know how long the attack was going to last, Secretary Panetta?
No idea.
Well, it could have lasted for 2 days. Now, my question is, was one airplane anywhere in the world deployed in the aid of the consulate? Did anybody launch an airplane? Was any airplane launched anywhere in the world to help these people?
Well, we ultimately did launch 130s to go in and rescue the people.
When were they launched?
I think they were launched in the period of time when the team went in there, and when we concluded, the attack was concluded, we said we've got to get the people out of there, and that's
was
when
it any airplane launched anywhere in the world before the attack was concluded?
If you're talking about a strike aircraft, no, Senator.
Okay. Was any soldier en route to help these people before the attack was concluded?
Well, we had deployed these fast teams, and they were on orders to move.
Were they on? Was anybody in motion before the attack concluded to help these people? Anybody?
Only the personnel that were in Tripoli.
Okay. Was any DOD asset ever deployed to help these people before the end of the attack?
Would you rephrase? Would you?
Was any DOD asset, aircraft or individual soldier, ever put in motion to help these people before the attack was over?
If I could, as soon as we knew there was an attack, the National Mission Force and the fast teams began preparing.
My question is, did anybody leave any base anywhere to go to the aid of the people under attack in Benghazi, Libya, before the attack ended?
No, because the attack ended before they could get off the ground.
Okay, and we didn't know how long it would last. Now, back to the threat assessment. In these 281 threats that we've received, can you go back and look and see if any of these threats have a cable from a U.S. ambassador saying, if we're attacked, the consulate is attacked in a coordinated fashion, we cannot defend the consulate, and oh, by the way, there are al-Qaeda flags flying over government buildings? Is there any other situation of these 281 that rise to that level? Because I want to know about it if there is.
The State Department would have the answer to that question.
Okay, let's talk about the State Department. General Dempsey, seems to me that General Ham kept you pretty well informed.
I agree with that.
I agree with that too. And did General Ham on that night ever suggest that a military asset, did he order a military asset in motion and someone told him to stand down?
No. In fact, he was with us in the Pentagon that day.
Okay, so he was with you. Now, you knew about the cable from Ambassador Stevens because General Ham informed you of it. Is that correct, General Dempsey?
In a written weekly report.
Okay. So when Secretary Clinton testified a few weeks ago that she had a clear-eyed assessment of the threat we faced in Libya, is that really a credible statement if she didn't know about the ambassador's cable on August the 15th saying we can't defend this place?
Well, I don't know that she didn't know about the cable.
She said she didn't.
Then that's a...
Are you stunned that she didn't?
I would call myself surprised that she didn't.
Okay. Are you surprised that the President of the United States never called you, Secretary Panetta, and say, how's it going?
You know, normally in these situations...
did he know the level of threat?
Let me finish the answer. We were deploying the forces. He knew we were deploying the forces. He was being kept updated.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, but I got limited time. We didn't deploy any forces.
No,
did you call him back? Wait a minute.
The event was over by the time...
Mr. Secretary, you didn't know how long the attack would last. Did you ever call him and say, Mr. President, it looks like we don't have anything to get there anytime soon?
The event was over before
it lasted almost 8 hours, and my question to you is, during that 8-hour period, did the President show any curiosity about how's this going? What kind of assets do you have helping these people? Did he ever make that phone call?
Look, there is no question in my mind that the President of the United States was concerned about American lives.
Well, all due respect,
frankly,
I don't believe that's a credible statement if he never called and asked you, are we helping these people? What's happening to them?
As a former
we have a second round,
as a former Chief of Staff to the President of the United States, The purpose of staff is to be able to get that kind of information, and those staff were working with us.
So you think it's a typical response of the President of the United States to make one phone call, do what you can, and never call you back again and ask you, how's it going, by the way? Show any frustration. We don't have any assets in there to help these people for over 7 hours?
The President is well informed about what is going on. Make no mistake about it.
Well, that is interesting to hear. We'll talk about that in the second round.
Yeah, the worst thing about that whole exchange between Lindsey Graham and Leon Panetta is the fact that the mainstream media has not paid any attention to it. Again, you know, Fox News, talk radio, some of the blogs have paid attention, but ABC didn't even cover the story. Didn't even cover the story. The only thing they paid any attention to was the fact that apparently there was a gun-running scheme underway where Americans were funding weapons for terrorists that were being used in Syria, just as we had funded weapons for the terrorists in Libya that apparently were directed at our ambassador, at our personnel, at our military that left 4 people dead on 9/11 just last year. We're going to talk more about this. Also, a blizzard breaks out in the Northeast this weekend. You've seen these pictures, just huge snowstorm. I guess it's a big bout of global warming that is burying the Northeast this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that. This was also early signing, or I guess final signing day for college football. There were winners and losers. The Vols turned out with a great array of talent that they got into the fold. 21 signees. They were ranked 20th in the entire country in the signing period for college football. That's the good news. The bad news is that even though they ranked 20th in a lot of the various polling data, they were 10th in the SEC, meaning that 9 other Southeastern Conference teams assembled more talent than the Vols. You're not going to get to the top of the pack until you start getting the talent that can put you at the top of the pack. We'll talk more about that. Get your thoughts on these stories and more when we come back for more of the Steve Gill Show, the weekend edition, in just a moment.
Steve's a social guy, and we bet you are too. So friend The Steve Gill Show today on Facebook, Twitter, and MySpace.
Hey, this is Steve Gill from my friends with Pilot Travel Centers. Whether you're a professional driver, a business traveler, or a family on vacation, you know that Pilot Travel Centers are your one-stop spot for convenience. Fill up your vehicle, grab a bite to eat in one of their quick-service restaurants, stock up on your favorite road trip supplies, all in an environment that is fast, friendly, and clean. They're also featuring the best coffee on the interstate. Now Pilot has teamed up with Flying J to become an even bigger and better friend on the roadways. Across Tennessee, across the nation, Tennessee-owned and Tennessee-focused, Pilot gets you there wherever you're headed.
DT McCall's has the best deals on Whirlpool, KitchenAid, and Maytag appliances.
We have a 25-foot Whirlpool side-by-side with filtration, dispenser, and glass shelves, all $8.99.
We have a super capacity Maytag commercial-grade laundry pair with all the bells and whistles, just $7.99 while supplies last.
How about a super deluxe Whirlpool 25-foot with French doors and dispenser, just $19.99 delivered.
Or a KitchenAid top-of-the-line Architect Series 2 with freezer drawer, just $22.99.
That's DT McCall's home of free delivery. Hey!
I want to change some things.
I want to help more kids graduate from high school.
I want more of my neighbors to have access to health care.
I want to change what I see around here.
United Way is creating real, lasting change where you live by focusing on the building blocks of a better life: education, income, and health.
I just want to see more smiles on my sidewalks.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. For more, visit United Way at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Steve Gill is on the air.
Hey, welcome back in. This is the Steve Gill Show, the weekend edition. Glad to have you with us. And if you'll go to our website, gillreport.com, gillreport.com, you can find links to the stories that we are talking about. You can also go to our Facebook page, Steve Gill Show, Steve Gill Show. If you've not already friended us on Facebook, encourage you to get that done. And as always, you can send me an email, steve@gillreport.com. steve@gillreport.com if you want to add your voice to the mix of conversation. We were talking in the last couple of segments a little bit about the investigation at Benghazi, and encourage you to go watch this video of Leon Panetta being put in the hot seat about what happened and the president just walking away, stepping out, not being involved at all in what was happening as our embassy personnel were under fire, as Americans were dying, as our territory was under attack. The president simply goes AWOL. Hillary Clinton was also missing. What was so much more important to them than doing their jobs? I mean, we know it was night, so the president wasn't playing golf. He's not really a big skeet shooter, so he probably wasn't out pounding out a few clays. What was the guy doing that was so important? And why won't the senators ask that question? The other big question that they really need to hone in on is the fact that the president said back in November that when this attack was underway, he gave 3 specific orders of what was to be done. And the first and most important one was to do whatever it takes. Do whatever it takes to take care of our people. And yet not a single plane was launched. Not a single boot was put on the ground. The president didn't ask again, okay, what'd y'all do? What's going on? How are things going? They didn't call the president to update him. Hillary Clinton didn't get involved at all. Martin Dempsey said that they weren't asked to send in rescue squads. Nothing was done. So the question that needs to be asked of the president, the question that needs to be asked of his press secretary, the question that needs to be asked of his top advisors, did he actually issue that order? Do whatever it takes. Or did the president lie? If he issued that order, why did they not obey it? Did somebody countermand the order? Did the president say it or not? And if he said it, why didn't anybody follow his direction? Those are the questions that ought to be asked, and so far not only have not been answered, they haven't even been asked. And the mainstream media ought to be asking that question until the president's ears are bleeding. He's going to be doing his State of the Union address. He says he's going to be talking about jobs. He always talks about jobs, he just doesn't do anything about it. The bigger issue is, will the media be clamoring before and after that State of the Union speech for answers as to what happened here at Benghazi? Now again, based upon the media coverage of this bombshell questioning where the Secretary of Defense acknowledges that the president basically dropped the ball on this, if the media is not going to cover that, they're probably not going to follow up on what the president was actually doing. But the American people should be demanding answers. And certainly those men and women in uniform should know that their commander-in-chief does not have their back. Go to our website, gillreport.com. You can find links that will give you more details about this. You can also, again, send me your comments, send me your thoughts, steve@gillreport.com. Another big issue this week was early signing, or actually signing of football players for college football. The rich get richer. Alabama once again topping the list, getting more talent to go with the national championships they've already won. The big surprise in the Southeastern Conference had to be Ole Miss. They were high-fiving. You can look at people in Mississippi right now. The ones that have that Botox look are the Ole Miss fans who've been grinning for nearly a week now after the array of talent they were able to haul in. That was kind of out of nowhere. That was a surprise. The Vols finished 20th, according to most of the ranking services, 25th in some, in terms of the amount of talent that they got in. The unfortunate thing for the Vols is that means they ranked about 10th or 11th in the Southeastern Conference. Southeastern Conference teams took up 6 of the top 10 slots in terms of the rankings of who got the best talent in this signing period for college football. The rich keep getting richer, and some new faces are showing up, like Ole Miss. And the Vols risk falling behind if they don't start stepping it up in the recruiting arena. Now, Coach Jones came in late, was having to keep what they had and try to get a few more, and I think did a pretty good job with his staff coming in late in the recruiting process. The kids that are signing now have been recruited by the same staff in many of these cases for a couple of years. Next year, the year after, will be a better test of what kind of job Coach Jones can do in getting the kind of talent the Vols need to reemerge back at the top of the pack rather than back in the pack. But they have to be pretty happy with what they got. And now the question is whether they can coach up the 2-stars and the 3-star players they got into being able to do more than is expected of those players. And that's going to be the real test of whether they can get back to the top of the echelon in the SEC and, of course, nationally as well. And it's a good start. Everybody's going to be buzzing over these kids, and then in a couple of years, some of the kids that were the can't-miss players are going to be, well, those who missed, and some kids you never even heard of that were 2-star or 3-star players are going to emerge as Heisman Trophy winners or first-team All-SEC or more. So you can't always judge based on recruiting, but there aren't a lot of the 5-stars that fall off. 3 stars, 4 stars, sometimes they don't make the grade. Some 3 stars step up. Most of those 5 stars have the speed, have the talent, unless they make off-field mistakes, they turn out pretty good. If you did not get a chance at the beginning of the show to hear and maybe even watch if you've been to our website, gillreport.com, the parody of the great ad during the Super Bowl, God Made a Farmer. So God Made a Liberal is posted up on our website, gillreport.com. It's not actually Paul Harvey's voice, but it's a pretty good copy of So God Made a Liberal. Go check that out at gillreport.com, and I think you'll enjoy that. Feel free to pass that around. We were talking about recruiting, and one of the more bizarre recruiting stories this week comes from South Florida, Miami, where a big superstar prep recruit, a guy named Alex Collins, is signed with Arkansas thanks to getting his dad's signature on the commitment papers, but his mother has hired a lawyer to try and block him from going to Arkansas. She wants him to go to Miami. So she literally has hired a lawyer to try and stop her son from going to the college he is signed to go with, even though the father, who is his biological father, apparently has not been really involved in his life. But he was able to get the father to sign the papers, which is all the NCAA needs. Mama's saying don't go to Arkansas. I'm thinking there's money involved here somewhere. I don't know if it's the mama who's looking for money. I don't know if it's the dad and the kid that are getting money. There's money involved here somewhere, particularly when you get people starting to hire lawyers to block where their son wants to go to college to play football. Now, again, the kid's 18. You would think he'd be able to sign the contract and decide where he wants to go to college anyway, but the NCAA rules require that a parent or guardian sign if you're under age 21. Kind of bizarre if they're over age 18, and I say this as a parent with kids in college, I can't get their college grades from the university. It's private information. They're an adult now, we're told. They're an adult if it comes to getting their grades, but somebody has to sign for them if they're going to a college, even if they're over age 18. And you got mother filing a lawsuit, hiring a lawyer to try and block her son from going where he's decided to go to college. Again, the old adage, follow the money. Follow the money. And in this case, it'll be interesting to see where it leads.
Stay Gill Smart on your smartphone with Steve's Daily Notes email newsletter. It's the news you need to know on the go. Online at gillreport.com.